here's Ron Johnson on Fox Business News with Maria Bartiromo. Here he is on yesterday.
What we saw in Texas certainly shows what folly the Green New Deal would be, how unreliable wind and solar power generation really is, and how it needs fossil fuel backup. We've also learned how vulnerable our grid is to, again, the unreliable green energy, but also potentially to geomagnetic disturbance from the sun, solar winds, and also potentially EMP attacks. So
it's interesting. If you were to take Ron Johnson literally, you would assume that something like 80% of the energy that Texas relies on comes from wind and solar, and 20% comes from fossil fuels. In fact, it's the opposite. But the real problem, of course, we know is there was a complete lack of regulation. The state deregulated decades ago, and was, or I should say, about 20 years ago, a little less, and or more, I should say, decades ago.
Well, basically, they created their own system to skirt federal regulation in the 30s by not making it cross state lines. So they had complete jurisdiction over it, which allowed them to cut corners. And again, you point out that small figure of wind turbines. If they had regulation, or if it wasn't such a profit motive, they could have had technology that would defreeze wind turbines, even if, that was the primary source, which it's not, obviously.
Of course. The under regulation, they would be required to expend money on things that they may not use every day. So much of this, and we talk about this with Naomi Klein, so much of this reminds me of Katrina, where the buses that FEMA had standing by ostensibly to evacuate people from New Orleans, they had outsourced it. They had privatized this to a contractor who then subcontracted. And the buses could have been waiting outside the city. They were about an hour and a half away. They could have been waiting outside the city for the go. But instead of doing that, because what if they didn't need them? Then that would cut into their profit margin. This is exactly the same type of dynamic.
And we're seeing it in COVID too. With the for-profit hospitals, they don't have the capacity because that would have cut into their profit margins.
Exactly. Can't have any empty beds during the course of normal things because that would inhibit our profit. If we were to have those extra beds in the case of an emergency or a spike or high, record low temperatures, and they know they will get away with this. This is just simply the way that they do business and they make money. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll be talking to Naomi Klein back in just a moment.